Uncommon Geeking Program, a book club podcast where each week, three of us read up on a topic and discuss it from a geeky, nerdy perspective. Mm-hmm. This week, I am your host, Keenan Kodesch. You've known me from such works as How to Wear Tracksuits with Jeans. And we will be discussing Netflix's adaptation of Castlevania, along with the theme of video game adaptations. We're going to take a kind of like a rebuttal to what we released before, which is that video games are bad, and I want to like kind of present a counter argument right here.
Video game adaptations are bad. I don't think we've ever smeared the good name of video gaming on this podcast.
No, all video games are evil.
This is secretly a show about how video games are bad.
Yeah, not when Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has made me clench so sweetly that my Apple Watch recognizes it as good exercise.
I'm actually just trying to move the format over to a more conservative, creationist kind of podcast.
Oh, okay.
In the beginning, there was Hideo Kojima.
And then there was Konami, and then there was Strife.
That's the whole War of King David.
Yeah, right. I'm joined by two people, each of whom has selected a domain they think connects back to our topic and theme this week, and they are...
Hello, my name is Colin Ketchen, and I am going to be discussing Hunt the Truth, a 2-season podcast used as marketing material in the marketing campaign for Halo 5 Guardians. I know it seems a little bit roundabout, but I have some points to make.
No, I listened to, I think, half of that. Because I got into it, half of it, and then I fell out, and then I never...
Interesting. I didn't think there would be any awareness of this obscure piece of Halo lore.
It's Keegan-Michael Key, right?
It is Keegan-Michael Key and Kobe Smulders.
All right. And who else do we have here?
Yeah, I'm Jahnavi. I'm also here. And I'm going to be talking about a 2010 short film called Pixels.
Oh, God. Wow. All right.
I'm sorry. Any relationship to the Adam Sandler dumpster fire of the same name?
When was that? Was that 2015?
2015, I believe, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that movie was based on this 2010 thing called Pixels, which is a short film, and it won a best short film category in 2011 at an international animated film festival. Oh. So this one is actually interesting.
Okay, cool.
Because it's shorter, and then it covers a couple of different, classic video games, like Space Invaders and Pac-Man and Tetris and whatnot. I'd never actually saw the 2015 one. I assume it was very bad.
So do I. I have not seen it either.
I'm not saying don't, but avoid.
Don't, but avoid. Well, I mean, I just think that I haven't seen it, but I am of the persuasion that, everything post 50 First Dates that Adam Sandler has touched is kind of dookie.
We'll talk later, but suffice to say, visually, kind of cool looking. Story and everything else, nah, not even Peter Dinklage could say that.
Right. Yeah. So basically, it was kind of an homage to, or a little bit of a love story about 1980s arcade games, because the short film is a little bit more aesthetics focused and doesn't try and smush a stupid plot into its conceit of bringing video game visuals and stuff into the world.
Dumb plot. Who needs it? Cool. We're going to start by summarizing our topic and domains before we openly discuss. Finally, we'll close with a competitive rating section to determine who contributed best, and I will pick a favorite, and whether today's topic was enjoyable.
My favorite things about the rating section is that it's 10 minutes that I get to clench during recordings.
Oh. All right, so let's start with the summary. So we're going to summarize Castlevania. For those of you who do not know, Castlevania is an adult animated web television series based on the Japanese video games.
When you just describe it as adult animated, you think there's going to be a lot more tentacles and or saxophone involved.
Why not both?
That is true. Well, it's inspired by anime, but it's not technically
just very wholesome squids playing jazz.
Anime, you could say. It's based primarily on, from what I can gather, because I haven't played all the Castlevania games.
From what I gathered, Castlevania 3.
3, yeah. And then I think a bit of Castlevania Curse of Darkness, which was 2005, and then Castlevania 3 was 89. It follows primarily Trevor Belmont, who is the last son of this disgraced vampire hunting family. Basically, Dracula, the vampire, by the way, they're vampires,
What?
is sacking Wallachia, which actually was a real country, Wallachia, which I actually really enjoyed, because Dracula was a real guy, so it's kind of cool that they actually put that in. So basically, Dracula's wife, after he kind of like reforms himself for an episode, for about 5 minutes, he's reformed. He's not murdering people anymore. He has a human wife. He's pretty chill. She's a nice lady. Until his wife is murdered because she's a
lady of science.
Yeah, you mean a witch? I just want to make that clear, listeners. She's not a lady of science. It was clearly the devil who made cough drops. Anyway. No, I don't know. It's kind of weird because, like, you know, you look at the technology event, like the science at the time, and people are like, sorcery. And now we're like, really? Like, that scares you?
Yeah.
We're dealing with designer babies here? But anyway.
It's interesting that in this, because the first season of Castlevania, which is what we watched for this episode, is 4 episodes between 22 and 30 minutes each. The first episode, like, doesn't have the main character Trevor Belmont at all. It is all following Dracula retaliating against the church for Bishop Frewer murdering his wife and burning her at the stake. And the irony to me is that, like, if we assume like a grounded physicalist interpretation of history where witches did not exist and the supernatural did not exist, that makes a lot of like the Salem witch trials and things like that of the past pretty questionable, right? Mm-hmm. But in this world, hellscapes, demons, monsters, and magic objectively exist. So I don't really get the beef here when like this stuff is there and actually happening.
Well, I guess there's a difference, and you know, usually. Just a quick taker. Usually in these kind of series, whenever they do that, Colin, actually, I enjoy how a lot of them bring up the fact that, like, oh, this isn't normal. Most of that is just mob fervor and fear.
Sure.
Trying to, you know, make a statement about, like, humanity's dark side, yada, yada. But eventually, Dracula seems to focus, at least the way we encounter him, we seem to focus on Trevor, what?
Did you see Jahnavi's screen?
Oh, now I see it. That's great. Hey, Jahnavi. It's just a hand with some drawings on it. I love it.
You drew some convincing eyes. Are there lips on there that I'm not seeing?
Yeah, they're right there.
Oh,
see?
Shit.
Anyway, so Trevor Belmont, he was from the family Belmont who hunted Dracula and creatures of the night for, you know, centuries, have now been cast out at an undetermined amount of time before, and now he's like this drunk guy.
Still pretty buff, though.
Yeah, he's still, honestly, that is always, I know this sounds weird, it's my pet peeve a little bit about...
Oh, I'm wasting away so much. Oh.
Yeah, it's like, are you sure? Because you seem to have enough money to keep up your protein intake, and you, like, work out a lot.
I have so many things I want to say. I'm not going to be able to fucking talk, because I'm going to laugh every time Jahnavi's hand puppet starts moving.
Is this distracting? Should I not do this?
I can persevere. Oh, you've revealed the magic. You have fingers under there. Now I don't believe it.
Yeah.
So eventually it's Targovista, right? The former capital of Wallachia, right?
Yeah.
Is that where we end up? All right, so does anyone want to take over, like, what happens to Trevor?
Ooh.
Trevor Belmont there?
We get, like, a 10-minute bar fight. That's it.
Yeah.
That was well. He wasn't in Wallachia. He was in Wallachia, but he wasn't in Targovista yet.
That's true,
right? And he's getting blamed for all the stuff that is going on. Like, people are like, oh, like the Belmonts were dealing with like dark magic and stuff.
Yeah, I was a little frustrated with the bar fight scene where he was being confronted by some people in the bar for being a Belmont, and everybody has a very poor opinion of the Belmont family because they were excommunicated from the church. I was frustrated with it because I think it was actually a very effective character introduction. I'm not one for that Han Solo type intro of just like lurking in the shadows of a bar like, I'm a charismatic wayfarer who can do anything, just wait. But I think that this actually did a pretty good job of saying who he is, what his lineage is, what his responsibilities and reputation are. I just think that the scene went on too long, and it tripped over its own feet a little bit.
All right, I'll go with that. I thought it was a very good setup for the humor that came about in Castlevania, because it had a lot more humor than I expected. I actually
really
like
slapsticky reactionary stuff that, you know, lightened the mood which was pretty necessary.
Yeah, it did good with like cutting the tension, because Castlevania in like the action, it's very violent and gory, and
oh my god, it's so violent.
A little bit more than I expected, to be honest. But I thought it was like weirdly tasteful. I know that sounds weird because like
weirdly tasteful.
Yeah, there's certain like like gore that's not like all right. It doesn't feel excessive, but it feels like gory. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think some of that might come with like some of the gory parts being a lot about like killing monsters and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you're killing monsters, and then also when you have an animation in which you're making some humans look more grotesque than others, depending on like the kind of theme you're talking about, like it makes it more like, oh, this is a representation of evil, like, but a visual cue of that.
Yeah.
More so than like, oh, you're killing a person brutally.
Yeah, in terms of the gore, I mean, you go pretty standard, hey, cut off someone's head, blood goes everywhere, but then you also get a monster is walking around with his dead baby in its jowls, and Trevor uses a whip and like removes someone's eye with it. Like they get a little creative with how grotesque it can be, and this is actually a question because, I mean, for posterity here, I have not played Castlevania, let alone Castlevania 3. Have either of you?
I haven't played Castlevania 3. I honestly cannot remember what Castlevanias I played. I remember playing Castlevania, though.
Okay, Jahnavi,
I have not played any Castlevania, no.
So then, Keenan, I would like to lean on you. How do you think that this grotesqueness translates from the source material?
Well, I think because the original sort of games were kind of like, they were based off like the horror film stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just a more updated take on that, like for more modern sensibilities.
Yeah.
And of course, when like you killed monsters, there was the classic, like little explosions and like stuff. But it wasn't like, I don't know, like they would like disappear into like, like little bits of flames and stuff. But I don't quite remember anything being particularly like, but then again, we were also dealing with
like 1989 graphical capabilities.
Yeah, and like sometimes like they would like turn into like little skulls and stuff. But I think it still translates well for like the classic horror.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And I thought they did that well.
Yeah.
But basically, back to the main plot. So eventually, Trevor Belmont gets to Targovista, which is currently under siege by the Night Hordes, which is an army Dracula has raised.
Which I will say, the shot of Dracula's castle, the eponymous Castlevania, appearing in the background, I like that shot. That was freaky and cool.
It was so pretty.
Yeah, the moving castle. He goes there, he faces opposition from the church, he meets a group of speakers, which are these sort of oral historians who go around doing good deeds, and he protects them from the church, who, has kind of whipped up the crowd. And the bishop, the same bishop who killed Dracula's wife, is kind of using them as a political crutch to blame them, and he wants to expose all evil.
And it's made apparent by stuff he says later that he's like, oh man, this is a chaotic situation in the landscape. I could like emerge as like the bishop.
Pope.
Yeah. I could be the Pope.
I could be the super bishop. I don't have to move just on the diagonal.
Yeah.
Yes.
From bitch up to bishop, man. Am I right?
Castling.
The Trevor's journey through the rest of this is, and I didn't expect it from this show, is basically just a series of very in-depth personal conversations with people. He rescues the speaker's granddaughter from like, what was that, a stone...
Like a Cyclops.
Stone Cyclops' cave.
Yeah.
Which he recites the names and characteristics of these monsters like a seasoned D&D player. And he also, like, frustratedly speaks to the monsters like a seasoned D&D player. Like, he attacks it and he's like, come on, just die, just die, just die.
I actually really enjoyed that aspect.
I did. It made it feel gamey.
It also made him feel like he was... like a drunk just getting back into this.
Yeah.
He's all right. He's like, all right, think. It's a stone. What do I know about these things? He's just thinking out loud because he's actually, and like we kind of see him through this. He's kind of like, he's mostly drunk all the time and he's not actually that good as he maybe used to be. It's like he said before when he was like confronting these two priests. I may be out of practice, but I'm stone cold sober, which I think was one of my favorite lines.
That was a good line.
And eventually, he saves her and then he kind of rallies the people against the Night Horse and saves the town.
Lets him know that Bishop Frewer is a lying scumbag right as Bishop Frewer gets eaten by a weirdly kinky hellhound.
This is just an empty box. Ooh, that was spooky. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. And it ends with a fight between the what's the speaker's granddaughter again? What's her name?
It's Sypha?
Yeah, something like that.
I always hear it like slightly different sometimes, but I think it's like Sypha.
I do not remember.
We have Google at our disposal, but fuck that.
Yeah, Sypha Belnose.
Fantastic.
Who's also a character in the games.
And then they end up fighting... There's a little dramatic irony because they're fighting a vampire and they're like, "Are you Dracula?" But we, the audience, saw Dracula in episode 1, so like we know it's not Dracula, but it turns out to be Dracula's son.
Yeah, in Trevor's defense, no one knew exactly what Dracula looked like.
I get his struggle, but I, Colin Ketchen, have seen Graham McTavish as Dracula in episode 1. I know this is not Graham McTavish or Dracula.
Are you objecting to dramatic irony, Colin?
I'm not objecting to dramatic irony, except that in this case, I don't think it heightens any of the tension. I think it deflates it, because the tension is they don't know who this is. But there's not, like, mystery around that. It's just lack of knowledge.
Well, it fits into the general theme of, most people are dumb and stupid.
Yeah.
We're going to try and be nice to him anyway. Except for Dracula, who's like, nah, fuck humanity.
But are we going to work with this person kind of a thing?
The conversation was great, yeah. It turns out to be the son of Dracula.
Yeah, Alucard.
Achilles. Aphid.
Adrian.
Adrian Dracula.
Alucard, Tepesh.
No, his name's just Adam.
Adam.
Just like a really normal name.
Yeah, my name is Steve. Vladim. It turns out he went against his father when his mother first died because his mother, while she was being burned, was like shouting to like the sky to forgive them. They know not what they do. Actually, I really appreciated Emily Swallow, I believe that's her name, the actress who played Lisa Tepesh, when she was being burned alive. That was just really really heartfelt scene, because she's like screaming to the heavens to like not do it, and she's like, he was doing so well, like she just thought about how well Dracula was doing.
I definitely categorize the show as ballsy, one, for starting it off with that scene you've just described.
Yeah, right?
But also for spending a first season that consists only of 4 episodes, essentially as a prologue, because it ends with Vladim, Trevor, and Magic Lady coming together as a posse being like, let's go get Dracula, and that's the end.
Well, actually, it turns out Warren Ellis, they went through a few different he actually started to get frustrated, because he would send them off to Konami, and Konami would like send them back and be like, change this. And apparently they had to do this enough times that he like commented on it. But apparently he originally wrote it kind of as a weird trilogy. Like he wrote it out as in like 3 parts.
Yeah.
Which is like normal, like 12 episodes. That's a typical kind of anime, animated OVA kind of, season. And this was designed to be the first part. And what I liked about it is actually it didn't require any previous knowledge, and it also could have been on its own. Did any of you guys watch beyond the 4 episodes?
I did not, but for time we do have to wrap up the summary as well.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say. So they head off and they do their things. Yeah. And that is basically Castlevania. I would highly recommend it.
Why did you pick that for the topic?
I picked it for the topic because, in my opinion, this is a video game adaptation that, one, like I said, in my personal opinion, did it very well. And 2, has received such acclaim from so many sources, all sorts like Geek, IGN, Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes has the first season on 80%.
Nice.
So there's just so many comparisons. Metacritic gives it, also generally favorable reviews, I believe. I think it's 71 is their average score.
That's pretty good.
And also the fact that, like I said, I don't know if you guys know this, but the 4 episodes were released, and almost the same day or the next day, it was renewed for a second season. And it happened again when the second season came out. They renewed it for a 3rd season.
Nice.
Just because of how much people seem to have enjoyed this. The showrunner, Adi Shankar, has now been kind of greenlit for both an Assassin's Creed series and a Devil May Cry series, kind of in that same vein. And we'll talk more about him later, because I have some things to say about him. But like I said, I wanted to talk about him because I thought this is an example of what video game adaptations could be. And I wanted to find out if you guys felt the same way, and maybe dissect why this became a success, despite being a video game adaptation.
Cool.
So next, we will be moving on.
Moving on.
to some domains. So this is the part where our representatives get to summarize what they brought to the table. So let's start off with Colin.
Keenan, thank you so much for having me on the show today. I'm really happy to be here. I heard what you said about Castlevania, and I have some counterpoints I'd like to make using the vessel of Hunt the Truth, the 2015 podcast.
I didn't know you were bringing this, and once again, I'm very excited about it.
So the reason I wanted to pick Hunt the Truth is because Hunt the Truth is very good.
It is.
Hunt the Truth is a story that follows the character of Benjamin Gerard, played by Keegan-Michael Key. Halo being a futuristic science fiction franchise set about 500 years in the future.
By the way, it's Halo.
This journalist, Benjamin Gerard, is trying to follow news coverage surrounding something called the Spartan 2 program and a specific soldier named the Master Chief. I don't want to go into all the Halo lore, but the Spartan 2s are super soldiers, and Master Chief is maybe the most famous among them.
What about Fred? No, that's too much lore.
Fred's in Halo 5.
And now he is. I think ruined him a little bit, but anyway.
So Halo 5 Guardians is the game that this was supposed to promote. And all of the promotion around Halo 5 Guardians centered on the central character of Master Chief, who is one of the most iconic video game figures in history. And the promotional campaign was like, Master Chief is now a wanted criminal. And you're constantly getting commercials and ads and promos that are pitching his side as well as the side of the other soldiers that are hunting him down. And it's called Hunt the Truth because it's like, what really happened with Master Chief? And everyone, I remember the day that those trailers came out, kind of a big deal. A lot of people were confused because we got different perspectives on this pretty stable, reliable character. And what Hunt the Truth does is it goes into a reporter unearthing facts about these super soldiers, the controversies behind their development. And one of the biggest incidents was there was this tape of some like congressional or government meeting or something, and
spooky.
Footage makes it seem like, yeah, so spooky, right?
Ooh, the Congress.
Footage makes
But
it
for real,
seem
though.
like Master Chief was assaulting civilians, and then it's revealed that he's not. Now that sounds pretty boring.
Doctored footage from the government.
No way.
But yeah, but then it's like, it's kind of a red herring because that's not what the video game ended up being about.
Aw, really?
Yeah, and even so, the story of this person investigating Master Chief, an actual mystery around this character, was really intriguing. The voice acting was phenomenal. The reliance on the universe was very good. The sound design was well produced. Like, this came from people with a lot of money and creativity who wanted to make a good podcast. The game, Halo 5, had a pretty disappointing campaign. And I don't want to say it's a bad story. I like the plot quite a bit, but the game
It just doesn't fit, I've heard.
Yeah, the game has 8 main characters, and you don't really get to know any of them super well. So the events are cool, but the characters kinda aren't, which is disappointing.
Which is a shame.
Because you got Nathan Fillion in there. How the hell are you not gonna fall in love with Nathan Fillion?
Yeah, because, I've only read some of the books. I'm not nearly as knowledgeable as you, and I've talked about more with my father, who read all of them. And I, frankly, loved Spartan Fred.
Yep.
And I remember one of the first conversations I had with you about it when it first came out. I was like, oh man, I want to get it. I want to get it for the Xbox or whatever, because Spartan Fred, who was my favorite character in the books.
Mm-hmm. He's very cool. He's the highest
ranking
ranking
Spartan. He saved Master Chief when he was just a rookie.
Yeah.
And I found out he was barely in the game. He just wasn't really have a presence.
You do play the game from the points of view of somebody chasing Master Chief and of Master Chief himself. But the drama of him being hunted dissolves after about the 3rd mission in the game. You get a cool cutscene where they have a fist fight. It's a very good fist fight, but the remaining 60-70% of the game is not about that. And I think that they had such a good pitch for the promotional material that the game did not deliver on. And if it's a red herring, I get that. But the reason I wanted to bring Hunt the Truth is because I think it's a weird example of a pretty poor video game decision, or at least a poorly executed video game decision that was made better by an adaptation in a different medium. And Hunt the Truth and Halo 5 tell different stories, but I would rather listen to Hunt the Truth than watch Halo 5's story played out as a cutscene. The gameplay of Halo 5 is pitch perfect. Love it. But yeah, that is my piece on that. I also
Do you think you would have expected less from Halo 5 had you not seen the promotional materials that you thought were really good?
I think I would have expected something different, not necessarily something less. I don't think the story of Halo 5 is bad. Like I said, I think they have a great plot. They're building on the universe well. The levels are fun. Like it's engaging and beautiful and varied. But I think the two issues were you had promotional material that did not reflect the game, and the promotional material was really, really, really good. And then you also have some stumbles in the way that the game actually delivered that content to you.
I didn't know it. I didn't know the reveal or whatever happened so early in the game. I knew eventually it was like, just kidding, but
very early in the game. That's very early.
Oh, that is a bit of a bummer, Is there anything else you would like to add, real quick, onto your domain?
Well, I think the other reason I was interested in choosing this is because I haven't played Castlevania. I actually have a friend who collects old video games, and the other day I was like, do you happen to have Castlevania 3 Curse of Dracula? And he was just like, oh, for NES? Yeah, I just bought that a couple days ago. And I was like, sweet. So I almost played it, but I didn't.
Oh, shame.
Rude.
I didn't have time. I haven't played Castlevania, so I kind of wanted to take an approach to this conversation that didn't really rely on like a one-to-one adaptation of material, rather a representation of a fiction, where Hunt the Truth is not an adaptation as much as it is like supplemental material.
All right.
That's a good point. Like, because now that you bring it up, there is a wide and substantial difference between we want to adapt something into this, which puts a lot of pressure on what the material has to be, versus whether something is going to be supplemental, where like it doesn't quite matter what it is or not.
Yeah.
As long as it, is good and relates enough.
Yeah.
So
as good as it fits.
Yes.
That was my nickname in high school.
Yeah, good and it fits. We'll put a pin in that thought process until the discussion. Next we have Jahnavi. And Jahnavi, what do you got for us?
Right. So what I have for you is literally a 2-minute long short film called Pixels.
A lot to work with.
That was a short film that was released in 2010, which later spawned the somewhat unfortunate 2015 longer film called Pixels, which did not do so hot.
Let's not say somewhat unfortunate. Let's just say unfortunate.
And instead of saying feature-length films, can we just say long films?
Okay.
It's right.
If that would make you feel better,
we've got a point. If we're gonna like have a consistent vocab, we need to start calling them long films. I'm a long filmmaker.
Gross. Let's get it back to Jahnavi. We're ruining this.
Sure. Anyway, so I'll describe to you how the 2 minutes goes, but I would encourage people to, find it somewhere. It's probably on YouTube somewhere and watch it for themselves. Anyway, in New York City, a dude throws away this big chunky 1980s television TV, throws it away and then walks away. And then after a bit, the TV suddenly turns on, and then you see this little 8-bit picture of a bomb. And then when the fuse on that bomb runs out, the TV explodes, and there's a cloud of these 3D pixels going everywhere, and they fly over man.
3D pixels are called voxels. Fun fact. So
they're called 3D pixels.
Oh, sorry,
let's
my bad.
Get that straight.
Okay, pixels, but imagine a 3 instead of the E. So you have a 3D represented. So these things fly. They fly over the New York City sidescape, and then it releases characters from 80s arcade video games. And then you get space invaders shooting downwards, and then the projectiles explode a delivery truck and 2 taxis. And then when these things explode, they degenerate into just pixels. And then a cloud of these voxel pixel things fly into a subway station, and then they form into a Pac-Man, which eats up subway trains as it travels through these tunnels.
That's rough.
And then its progress is shown on the subway display, kind of how cleared away dots pop up on the actual game.
That's very funny.
Then you get these giant Tetris tiles matching up with skyscraper floors. And then one building gets filled up, and then that eliminates several of the floors of the building, so the building's top falls over because the lines have been cleared in the Tetris game.
Mass death.
Then you get like Arkanoids come and like destroy the bricks in the Brooklyn Bridge, and then the bridge collapses.
That's Brooklyn.
Then you get Donkey Kong. He like throws a barrel from the Empire State Building, flattens like a traffic light, breaks off a fire hydrant, and then suddenly starts spraying pixelated water. So you have this general ongoing thing of like, all right, these 80s like arcade things are like destroying stuff and turning that stuff into pixels. And then finally there's this giant pixel bomb. And then when it explodes, everything around it, instead of being destroyed, it just becomes pixelated. So then this sort of reverberates out through the entire like city and then the entire planet. And then it just changes into a giant like voxel. And then it just continues to rotate as it drifts out into space. And then the end credits of this 2-minute short film are like shown as a high score list.
That's funny. I like it.
That's actually pretty fun.
I enjoy that.
That sounds like a much better 2-minute film than a 130-minute film.
Yeah. And then so the general like conceit of each of these elements that they brought in different 80s arcade games was like, how am I going to take this 2-dimensional visual that you're playing, translate that action into 3-dimensional activity, and then furthermore highlight how destructive it would be scaled up in a particular fashion. And then doing this general thing of like, all right, now everything's pixels. We're pixels now. Bye. So right. I found it very charming. I really like short media because it sort of forces a lot into a smaller attention span, kind of.
All right. It's compact.
And I like the way that it has taken like kind of the feel and the charm of 80s arcade games and has focused kind of like on the visualness and like the physicality of what these particular things are, as opposed to thinking about things like, oh, well, what about the character? And like, what about the plot? And like, what about these other storytelling elements?
What about the plot?
Yeah, like this is just like, okay, you kind of get an indication of what the plot of this thing is because they start out with like, oh, here's a bomb. Like, here's a ticking little bomb. And then here we're unleashing this pixelated madness out into the world. And then, it ends with, okay, check. We are now pixel. So, like, the idea of pixelation and the visuals of pixelation sort of tied into these, like, destructive themes. It's a lot of destructive fun, which is something that I, like, relate to. I like when things get destroyed, but it's in a way that's like, woohoo! And not in a way that's like, oh no, melodrama time.
So maybe that, like, Avengers style, hey, the city's getting destroyed, but we're having fun, versus, the grim, dark disaster porn movies of like, oh no, there's a boulder, look out.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't mind either or in moderation, but like this brings such a life and brightness and fun to something being destroyed that like I don't feel like I get a lot like in other kinds of media. So anyway, that's what I brought to talk about.
Ooh, all right, cool. All right, so now that we've kind of like talked about our domains, we have like kind of topics, let's move on to the discussion.
Blah, blah, blah.
Wow. You can't say that on public
I'm
access.
really rude, I'm sorry.
Now, for those, because I wanted to talk about, guys, real quick. First, did you think like Castlevania was good kind of period, or, did you think it was good for an adaptation? Which I think is, I know you guys are like kind of limited here, but I do kind of want to ask, do you guys enjoy it at least,
Well, we should say questions about enjoyment should be saved for the ratings.
All right, then I would like to know, did you guys watch that little like optional video that I sent you about Adi Shankar?
Yes, I did.
I did not. I think I missed it.
Well, basically, I put it in the Facebook. It's he's an Indian American film producer, a YouTube personality, and occasional actor. I didn't know about him until I really started researching Castlevania for this podcast.
Okay.
But it turns out I actually know a lot of his work.
Okay.
He was the showrunner for this, and he actually, what I found interesting is that he made this thing called the Bootleg Universe one-shot films. There are all these series of short films, or not long films, as we know, where he kind of and they're all really nerdy things. One of them I saw when it first came out. I didn't realize this was him, the same guy. It's called The Punisher: Dirty Laundry. It's basically Thomas Jane. This was in 2012. Thomas Jane reprising his role as the Punisher from 2004.
Okay.
Doing laundry while he's witnessing crime go on, but he's not going to stop it. But then he finishes doing his laundry and he goes, and they're all these really weird, nerdy stuff. He has one about Venom, Judge Dredd. He also
wait, what did he do on Judge Dredd?
Well, he did a short film in 2004 called Judge Dredd Super Fiend, but he also I think he produced. He was the executive producer of the new Dredd 2012
with Carl.
Wait, really?
Yeah, and he also was
That's so good.
Right, he was also the executive producer of The Grey.
I like him already.
He did Lone Survivor, A Walk Among the Tombstones, Killing Them Softly.
I will not say anything poor about his film-making pedigree. So there's a magic trick in Castlevania, which is I cannot stand anime as as a style and a genre. There's so much about it, and I was able to get through this show. There were a lot of points where I wasn't actually watching the screen, which sort of helped, but there's he managed to make a product that was good and spoke to me in spite of the intrinsic things that I did not like about it. However, the small 3-minute video that you showed me of him being interviewed by Netflix producers did him no favors in my eye. As holy shit, the biggest YouTube douche attitude I've ever seen.
A little bit.
He is either committed to a bit or absolutely off his rocker.
I mainly wanted to bring him up because of his kind of record with nerdy franchises. And in some aspects, he also made like I said, his Bootleg Universe, or a bunch of these nerdy stuff that he actually said that he liked doing more. These web.
Yeah, he liked doing short films
more than he liked doing the big films. And then one of his other really big one is Power/Rangers, which is that dark reimagining with James Van Der Beek that you heard about for a little bit, and then it disappeared from your mind, and then the new one came out.
Wow.
So did he have any involvement in the Elizabeth Bank Power Rangers film?
I don't believe so, but I could be wrong for all I know. I'm not seeing anything on Wikipedia or anything in any sort of articles about it. But I just wanted to say that the thing is, so he for some reason has found a way to make video game kind of nerd franchises and make the jump to other media, which is something that I think historically. In at least the cinema industry has had a real hard time doing.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
Yes, because it's always a question of how good is it really when you come right down to it. More recently, I would argue that it's been getting a lot better, but in terms of video games, video games in particularly have other sources are kind of for whatever reason easier to adapt. Comics have always had, really good success, depending on, who you ask, of course. But then there's still, the super fans versus the fans versus the casual fans versus the people who never seen anything. But going more in general is that he seems to have, done it. So what about Castlevania made it, what could be at least, attributed to successful? I'm not going to ask you guys for good or bad.
Yeah.
But what do you think made this successful?
We are sort of hampered in that we didn't play the game itself, so we can't speak to that sort of experiential jump.
I can tell you that it's not a direct adaptation.
Yeah.
Of any
I noticed that.
So then it is more kind of what Colin was talking about earlier, with it being more of a supplement to round out the kind of universe and the world that's represented or was introduced by Castlevania.
I think what Castlevania did right, and this is so subjective because this is the terminology all nerds throw around with video game adaptations, is I think what this show did right is it didn't let itself get bogged down by the minutia of what made the game the game. Mm-hmm. It took inspiration from it and translated it into a different medium. I think the fact that it was styled as an anime sort of helped because it's able to play on this foundational understanding of a different thing. It's not like a movie where your only point of reference is the source material. It is able to then strike a balance between anime and Castlevania and sort of appease both parties.
And it can be melodramatic in 80s, and you're not bothered that much by it because it kind of fits.
And that's it. Is I think that they found a different framework, the anime sort of culture, that complemented this very well. Were this live action and written and shot exactly the same way, I don't know if it would have worked quite as well as an adaptation, but I think that there
was an aesthetic relationship existing kind of between the kind of thing that Castlevania was and what they were trying to do with it in the medium of like the anime that was created. So like as a translation, they were already kind of like, okay, like maybe we're German and English and we're not like Japanese and Malaysian, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Another thing that stood out to me was sort of the story structure of these 4 episodes, where we have once we get to episodes 2, 3, and 4, where Trevor Belmont is the main character, we have him going to the speakers, going to rescue Magic Lady, and then Vladim, and each of these different interactions he has. That's all it's going to be. That's all I remember.
I don't know, but Vladim makes me think of pickles. I don't know why.
What?
Like Vlas pickles or something?
Oh, okay. But anyway.
Okay.
Your weird pickle obsession.
Learned a lot about you. So we've got Vladim and Magic Lady, and his encounters with them, they feel sort of segmented in the way a modern Western action role-playing game would be, where you have a mission giver, you have a mission, you return to the mission giver, then you go on another mission, and like this sort of back and forth was not cumbersome at all in a show setting, but I was noticing it felt weirdly rigid. And then I was like, it feels like this guy's going on video game quests.
That's cool.
It's a video game. Okay, that makes sense. But ironically, this is based on Castlevania 3, which is not so much an RPG as Castlevania 2 and Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which spawned the Metroidvania subgenre. So sort of borrowing from the spirit of the franchise and its reputation rather than that specific source material.
Is that good or bad?
I think it's good for the product. I think it's only bad if you're a purist, but I think it is. I think it is good for
but purists won't like adaptations in general anyway.
Oh no, never. Which
tell that to Watchmen. Wait, no, that's right. They also hated that Watchmen was too much people.
It was too accurate. Yeah, no, nothing's ever going to make anyone happy. I think it helps me as someone. I don't play Castlevania, but I am just a little bitch for Metroidvania games that are based off of that mission structure. Not that the show enumerates, but
are you a bitch up though?
All right, so just to kind of like round out, so what you're saying is that perhaps its success is not in being a direct adaptation, but more in being in spirit of adaptation, because like in the games, I got the very like a theme of the show was very good versus evil, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that to me always kind of stood out in the games because, you're playing, a monster hunter and you're hunting, like monsters. And even though they modernized it, which I thought was very impressive, because...
comparing it to Hunt the Truth, I think they both succeed in the way that they sort of set themselves loose from the shackles of their source material by saying this takes place in a slightly different context. And
which
the audio
you have
thing,
to do because there has to be a reason why you're putting it in a different medium.
Yes, so it allows the creators to do the thing that they want to do. Whenever you're bound by anything, it can really disrupt your process. The good and evil thing, I actually really enjoyed for the first 3 episodes. For the last episode, that scene where the kinky hellhound was eating Bishop Frewer. That actually kind of ruined it for me, and maybe it's just because like I'm an angsty masochist like all other white American men, where like it clearly said who is the good guy and the bad guy. The monsters told the bishop, like, you are evil and you caused this. There was no question about what the good and evil were. The show clearly stated it, which might not be a bad thing, but to my angsty masochistic sensibilities, I'm used to that inner tumult that movies are supposed to give you about who's right and who's wrong.
Well, I would argue that you still kind of get that because with the whole good versus evil, they do have a way of not exactly, I won't say turning it on its head, but giving it a twist, because Dracula is a very, well, I don't know about you guys, but I found him a very sympathetic character. Even though like we knew he did terrible things, he admits like, well, that's not really me anymore. I'm kind of bored of that stuff. And he found love, and then that was taken from him. And so we can kind of understand why he's doing this.
I'm not bored. I'm pissed now. Die.
Yeah, but also that it kind of once again kind of like makes it a bit more complex of this good versus evil, because even the church, who we would think would be the good guys, kind of spun as not the good guys, that there's not really a whole lot of good in them, and that really the only good guys are our guys, which is mainly sci-fi. So once again, I think it's not like to say like
we're a cult, but a really big cult.
Yeah, it's not a direct like line that they draw for good versus evil. It is still good versus evil, but it's a little fuzzy, the sides.
Yeah, I would say that it was.
I enjoy it.
To me, it was reading more like, hey, guess what? Everyone's shitty. Here are some people who are trying to not be shitty.
Yeah.
Like, that was more what it was for me. It was just like, how can you find goodness?
So
like, or how can you be drawn to goodness in such situations where you have like a not like they're like the thankless job of protecting the human populace, and then
which I think the show was able to describe with a level of dimension and clarity that I was really surprised by, which again really only comes from the creative team on this show openly interpreting the source material, which Hunt the Truth, same thing. It's sort of a conspiratorial unraveling of the citizens looking at these super soldier forces and how they play into these larger government corporate machinations.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and then like, I like the, Colin, I like how Hunt the Truth stuff as far as like the people and the government, but is sort of echoed in the themes of the Castlevania show, because it's like the people and the church and that like relationship that you have between like, who are you giving power and influence to by your attention and like by like what you're doing? So I think that the difference is a good being parallel.
Castlevania is, like I said, one of the few things I've seen take such a clear, articulated stance on this is the good and this is the bad. It was at once refreshing and frustrating, which might just be
I think how that's also like a very 80s approach.
Yeah.
Like the 80s, like light, dark. Gonna be good, gonna be bad. There's a very clear good and bad.
In high school.
Yeah.
If they had introduced a character or someone that was a representative of the church, but was like could be classified as like a good guy, I think then that'd be a little bit more muddled. But you're right. They did kind of say like, don't trust the church or the priest or pretty much anyone that's kind of with them.
Yeah.
Because
I'm not saying I'm not trying to defend the Catholic Church and their actions, especially at this point in history. I'm speaking strictly from like
a historical perspective. No, that's even harder.
Yeah, let's do a historical literature interpretation.
Pope Urban III did nothing wrong. Anyway, continue. But you would have liked a little bit more. I don't want to say subtlety, but a certain level of interpretation, like a little bit more gray.
No, I think
mostly what this delineation did of like the show taking a strong stance between yes, good, yes, sympathetic character, no, not sympathetic. I think what it did was that it made it very whatchamacallit?
Candy bar.
Yeah, it made it a little bit more juvenile, Like, despite the
very adult.
despite the gore in it,
Yeah.
it made it more 80s for me. That the fact that they did that, like, this is
more
not
80s for me.
Yeah, like
That's a license plate.
It sort of had the effect of like sort of making characters more like archetypes and less like individually fleshed out characters, because everything was so clearly like presented and introduced and delineated. And that's kind of that's an aesthetic choice. That's an aesthetic storytelling choice of like, this is the kind of like classicism I want to follow.
Yeah, like a little bit. All right, I get you. I would say though that if you guys are interested in more of a, more development of the characters, watch the second season, which actually deals a lot with Dracula's inner court, which is very interesting. Pierre Stormare shows up. I love that man.
Cool.
Everything shows up. But anyway, I was going to say that I do agree with you guys that it does boil down a little bit
to a substrate.
Yeah, a little bit, just because, like, just because. But I do think that this is also one of the flaws that the reviewers and stuff, everyone who really watched it had, is that it's only 4 episodes. And it felt like we could have done a lot more with more episodes, which we do end up doing. We do a lot more. And, but I do want to point out, this is actually an opinion I've always held, that I don't think a good 3-dimensional character needs to be sympathetic.
I would agree with you.
Because I feel like there's always like this urge to like make those two things go hand in hand. Because, like, for example, the Bishop, played wonderfully by, what is it, Matthew Ferber? Or what's...
Matt Frewer.
Matt Frewer, who does... he's haunting and he's wonderful. He's got this quiet voice, and, like, it's terrifying. But anyway, like I said, the voice acting across the board, amazing.
Well, that's because you got 2 dwarves in it.
But anyway...
You got Thorin and Dwalin.
But I just wanted to say that I thought that he was very 3-dimensional. He wasn't just trying to do evil for evil. He was trying to, like, clean the country. And even though he was, like, morally, in the black, I could still see his relation, but I didn't find him sympathetic, which I think that's the villain I like to see, because I feel like nowadays there's always a push to make the villain kind of sympathetic.
I tend to prefer... I think what people need is an understandable villain, and sympathy is the shortcut to that understanding that a lot of people have latched onto.
Yeah, but just because
where I think you can have understandable villains that aren't sympathetic, which is why in the Silmarillion, Melkor / Morgoth of the J.R.R. Tolkien universe is like my favorite fictional character of all time. You don't like him, but you understand it, and it's so much more compelling.
Right, and I mean, like, you can clearly see with the Bishop, like, his thing is... he has a vision for how the world is supposed to be, and he's super into power. So, I mean, he's kind of, like, representative of a very, this is a toxic patriarchal tradition-y thing. And that's kind of what drives him.
Well, actually, I'd recommend going further into the series, because they kind of develop on a theme that started with the Bishop, which is more like, I mean... they kind of start off and they're like, are vampires really the bad guys here? Which one, as you guys know, as a Keenan Kodesch, vampires are always the bad guys. Let's get that straight right away. As a monster hunting purist, classical interpretations of monster hunting is pure. Anyway, no, the point is, they developed that further. And I think, once again, a real issue with the series was that it's only 3 bloody episodes, and I don't... sorry, 4, like, basically 3,
Basically 3,
No, it's just, it's really short, and I just think that was such...
Thank you.
Like, I don't know why they didn't, like, just have more right away, but,
So, actually, I have a question for Jahnavi.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask a question, too, but I'll let you go first.
Because I said it first, so that's how this works.
So, Jahnavi, question.
Motherfucker!
Query! Yeah.
Fucking vampires. So...
Fucking vampires.
There's lots of books about that.
See Twilight, and if, depending on how you read it, 50 Shades of Grey.
So, no, I was going to ask you just very quickly, I don't know if you have any opinions on it. You were talking about aesthetic earlier,
Yes.
and the short film Pixels is pulling from 80s video game aesthetic. This is also based on an 80s video game.
Oh, this
Yes.
actually ties in to what I was going to say, too. So
Yeah.
Oh, you guys
finish
are
yours
hive
and then
mind.
I'll add.
Well, actually, no, that's all I was going to say. If that's a springboard to Keenan's question,
I was
swan
going to say,
dive off of me, bro.
Actually, yeah, this is good then, because the art style for this series is heavily influenced by, I believe it's Castlevania Curse of Darkness or Sympathy of Night. I can't remember which one it is, but they use a lot of the art styles for the characters.
It sounded like you said Sympathy of the Night.
This Sympathy of the Night, which also
I
sounds
prefer
like a good book.
understandable nights over
Yeah,
sympathetic nights.
I want my nights to hurt me.
The night is bad and should always just be bad. No. Let's do one thing straight. The
hurt
night
my
is bad.
feelings.
No. Have you heard my theory about the dark? No. Anyway, the point is, they heavily took a lot of like the art style from the games. So in adapting video games in particular, do you think art style and style choices are important? And do you think that is like, because you said you really liked Pixels, and that was just kind of the main focus of Pixels. There's like an art style.
What
to
I
it.
liked so much about Pixels was that it took an aesthetic and then it had a clear transition of something that went from like, okay, these are two-dimensional games. We're going to bring them into three-dimensionality, and we're going to take like the destructive intent of so much of these games and bring them into the real world and like out of a game environment. So what I liked a lot about it was the way that it had a little mini dialogue and narrative about the aesthetics. Like it took the siloed off world of the environment of a classic 80s arcade game, and it put it into something new and something different. And even though it was only 2 minutes long, it was like a great little feisty adventure. So I think that the style and the visuals and stuff are all important components of the larger thing, which is like the feel and the aesthetic of what you get with particular games. And that's what people get nostalgic for. Like people get nostalgic for the feeling that they had when they were playing something or when they were doing something. And the style and the aesthetic kind of become like little cues to having people feel that kind of feeling again.
They're like signals.
Yeah, they're the little tags in the roll index of your heart.
So based on that, because I would like to answer your question too, Keenan.
Oh yes.
Based on that, I'm assuming that you are of the position that Castlevania, based on what Jahnavi has said, does the right job by pulling cues from the game to invite you into this nostalgic journey. You think it does represent the original?
I think it marries the aesthetics well, or it seems to.
So where Pixels merges pixel art with the real world, Castlevania is merging the original game's style and franchise's style with like anime conventions.
And modern storytelling.
Yeah.
Modern storytelling. I think it is very important to strike a balance there because this is being recorded at a time where we have not seen any trailers for the film, but we have seen a poster for an upcoming film adaptation called Sonic the Hedgehog, where those gloveless hands and muscular fuzzy blue thighs are really, really causing me, a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, a lot of distress. And
as not a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, it's causing me a lot of distress as well.
It's so distressful. It's very upsetting.
It's
It's exactly what I thought that they were going to do because they're looking at how do we take this strange style and merge it with real world stuff. And like, I think they're going
It's not necessarily a good dialogue because it's trying to be a straight translation.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's not trying to emulate the feel. It's trying to emulate the look.
Which is a fatal mistake that I think a lot of things have run into when they're like, oh, this was a bad adaptation.
Guys, Sonic looks so scary in this poster. He looks like a scary dude.
You know what? It's gonna be that he's wearing a tracksuit and that he was injected with something called like hedgehog serum, and that's just his hair. What?
No, I think
so
it is taking
actually,
place on Mobius, but whatever.
I think we're onto something though a little bit because Jahnavi, you said you didn't just enjoy that. Like, you also need to like. I think what we're getting at here is that not only do you need to get the style of something, you need to get that kind of that feel.
You need to know what your end goal is. And if you have a strong idea of what feel you want to get, you can better leverage the style and the aesthetics of the thing that you're trying to translate something into to get the desired result. It comes back to artistry. You need to know what your point is.
Yeah, so it's like kind of like in Pixels, like for each of our, medias, they kind of did that. For Pixels, they took the kind of idea of this kind of like nonsensical, more fun destruction and paired that with the video game, setting in the real world. Castlevania kind of like the dichotomy of like good versus evil, the classic like monster hunter versus monster feeling, but also like kind of updating while keeping the video game aesthetics. And then for Search for the Truth, Hunt for the Truth, right? Hunt the Truth. Hunt the Truth. Also, I mean, actually, this is a weird one because this one seemed to take the idea of hunting for the truth more than the actual Source game did.
And then the Source game seemed to be more about the gameplay, if I remember correctly.
But I would say though that from what I know of the books, and I don't know if you agree with this, Colin, that it's, and I think you do, that it's still it very much felt though like it belonged in the Halo universe.
The Hunt the Truth did.
Like, there's never a time where I was like, oh, well, Halsey would never put it like that. But I was like, yeah, that sounds like something Halsey would say.
It did. And again, that conspiratorial attitude is reflected in the game universe a lot because Master Chief's character comes from a tragic, really messed up background. But this sort of elucidates a point where this is a rebuttal to our episode Backflip the Movie about Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Backflip the Movie, I loved it.
Talking about bad video game adaptations. In that episode, I represented the 2016 Assassin's Creed movie.
Oh my God, that's right.
So coming off of how Hunt the Truth does feel like it fits in the universe, and Jahnavi's point of how you need to have a vision to articulate your feeling of the source material, Assassin's Creed is, I think, the best argument for that because the movie wasn't very good. And
it wasn't any kind of good, really.
I don't think it was a very good film, mostly for like just, writing and directorial purpose. I just don't think that they wrote a very good film, but it felt like it could be in the Assassin's Creed universe. The guy playing it played the Assassin's Creed game, and visually he was able to communicate a lot of the visceral parts of playing those games.
I would argue that it came very close to it, feeling like it would belong.
It came closer than most things out there.
But it still wasn't sufficient for it to be good.
Yeah, so, it was still an unenjoyable movie. Like numerically... Yeah. Financially kind of a failure on a lot of fronts. So, I mean, for all our points, there are examples of things that do exactly what we're saying and still fail. Yeah, and Castlevania succeeds.
I was about to say, then how come, and I don't want to attribute all the success of Castlevania to Adi Shankar, but I felt that an element that I think heavily helped it was the fact that, like, Warren Ellis, the writer, is a comic book writer, who wrote it, wrote the series. Adi Shankar loves this series. He's, at least presents himself as a very big nerd and kind of has a passion for these kind of nerdy fandoms and stuff. I think he had an interview that was called Fandom is Our New Religion.
Something religious text fanfic joke.
Yeah, right? So I think that a certain element it's not only just about making a good adaptation. It's also about making a good movie or a good web series or a good short film.
Because if it's not even a good piece of media, then it can't be a good adaptation.
Exactly. Making an adaptation for the sake of making an adaptation is no way a guarantee of making it good, or even it's almost a guarantee of making it bad. But I do think that a certain, I don't want to say respect, but a certain passion for the source material needs, or a certain understanding, I should say, of the source material needs to kind of shine through for adaptions to be successful. And I think that's what allowed the ones that we've discussed to be successful.
And that is the conclusion to Keenan's high school graduate essay.
Yes, in this essay. If only.
Keenan just got the nerds to do his homework for him.
No, the nerds, ha! All right, so now we're going to move on to the rating section, in which thank you all for such a great discussion.
Gory discussion.
Yeah, now we move on to having our representatives rate the topic on a scale of 1 to 5 night creatures, which I thought would be kind of fun. Yeah.
Well, Jahnavi likes her night to hurt, so how is this gonna?
No, it's great because it's so gory. It's like you can give half a night creature. You get it? Okay. I'm a genius. Anyway, and then next I will award a golden star afterwards to the person who I think best embodied this episode, and that will be in the form of the golden whip. But don't get started, Colin.
Now I want my nights to hurt.
I was about to say I didn't want to do a whip, but I just thought that was too perfect. Anyway,
okay, so I go first. I was on the fence about whether or not I was going to rate this a 5 night creature
at all
topic.
Or not. Oh,
and
really?
the reason being is, as I have said in this episode and in this show in the past, I take a lot of issue with the stylistic and cultural conventions around anime, its production and its consumption. Those are completely me problems more than anything. It's just something true. I don't enjoy, and we all have something we don't enjoy. This show, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, is not strictly an anime, and all the things that are not an anime about it are the things that I like the most, at least when it comes to the visual production. So I was considering rating it 5, and have been considering rating it 5 because it pulled the magic trick of being able to get past a presentation I dislike to make it something that I overall kind of enjoyed, in the way I really enjoy Avatar: The Last Airbender the same way. But then you showed me that fucking video of Adi Shankar. And oh my God, I again, nothing against what he can do. I don't know him personally. It very much seems like he's putting on a show personality, but that just tipped the scale enough for me to keep it at a 4. This is
Comes
4 out of 5 night creatures.
A bit of the typical
The first thing he says is, I'm not from this timeline, I'm from the future. Dead serious, no punchline. All right, what do you want me to do with that?
That is a little cringy. I didn't see this, but
it's just a strange form of existential dysmorphia that you are projecting into your outward persona that is supposed to make people like what you do.
30p confirmed existential dysmorphia. Let's go.
So that just really rubs me the wrong way.
As your YouTube influencer, quote unquote, which I don't believe is a real thing, but whatever.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it felt like. But so 4 out of 5.
Okay, for Adi Shankar's projected personality, I love it.
Yes.
All right. So, Jahnavi, what did you? How many night creatures would you summon up to?
I'm gonna go with 3 night creatures and 1 gory carcass, so 3.5.
All right, good. Someone met the Belmonts.
Yes, indeed.
Meet the Belmonts, starring Ben Stiller.
Oh no!
And Richard Armitage.
Please no. But anyway, my rationale is that while I did sort of enjoy it passively as something to consume, I don't think that I don't have the same nostalgic attachment to Castlevania, because I honestly had not even really heard of it until I knew that we were going to do this episode.
Interesting.
That's one of the hard ones.
Yeah, so I'm not very video game literate, but anyway, so I didn't have the nostalgia factor drawing me to it. So I was like, all right, straight up, do I think this is good or not? And it had some of my. It started off well. I was disappointed that we couldn't follow cool lady who's like, oh yeah, I want to do science and heal people, because I was like, oh,
Like, that's refreshing. And then, like, no, just kidding. This is not going to be a show about that. We're going to kill her off immediately and have her be the impetus for somebody else being really mad about something. And then we're going to have, like, okay. And then we have, like, a Monster Hunter show. So, I mean, I know that might reflect what the game is, but I was disappointed because I felt like it was a bait and switch. I was like, oh, here's a compelling, brave lady. And then all of a sudden, no. Fuck you, she is just gonna be man fuel for man feelings. And I'm like, great.
I will say, though, if you knew like anything about the series, that bait and switch would not have been there for you.
Right.
So I don't think anyone has ever said, like, been like, oh man, I really thought Castlevania was going to be this feminist icon. It became about hunting Dracula for some reason. I would love, though, if all feminist icon movies turn into that, though.
Yeah.
Like,
so, I have to say that part of my rating is due to that disappointment, and then the other part of the why I would take away a little bit of my stars, my dead creatures, my hellhounds, is because I don't tend to like things that lean into melodrama. And I don't tend to like things that, like, lean into extremely pristine character arcs, and that seemed like what the first 4 episodes were doing. It was just like, all right, I know what kind of characters this is, I know what's gonna happen. So I'm sure if I continued to watch the show, some of that would be further developed upon. But for this first, like, 4 episode arc, I was just like, all right, this was too clean plot wise. There wasn't enough twisting in it for me, even though I did like a lot about it.
I agree with that analysis, but I don't think it affects my rating because even though I haven't played Castlevania, that's what made it feel like a video game to me, where you as the player would need to be able to proceed through actions free of moral quandary if you're going to keep killing things, which is the point of the game.
Oh, I see.
So I think something about it allowed me to latch on to how would I play this if it were
what if you just wanted to kill things in the form of the game
it.
because you just like murder? But you can in real life, so, you know.
Then get GTA,
well, I think that's,
okay?
I think that's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
that you have to wrestle with. That's the point.
No, I liked both of your analysis. I thought they were very fair.
I'm not fair. I'm dark. Melanin, motherfucker.
I'm about as fair as my walls.
I would enjoy if most media turned into like a vampire hunt, but that's just me.
You're gonna have to explain your hatred of vampires to me one day.
No, he loves them. That's the problem.
No, I'm not going to get into it because it should be obvious. 1, 2, it's too long.
Well, I mean, why your special hatred?
I need to. I need a whole new podcast for that. Anyway, moving on. Maybe we'll talk about it after. But I would like to say that I think you guys would really enjoy what happened as the series was developed further. Because as we know, most like anime and like animated series typically follow like a 10 to 12 episode format.
Yes.
I do not know this.
Well, usually like anime.
For me, animated series means Family Guy and Adventure Time.
Ah, see. All right. Well, usually for like it's like a 12 or like 24 episode format, and like a lot of like TV shows in general kind of follow that. Like that's how many usually are in an episode. And Warren Ellis did design these first 4 as just.
It's a prologue.
Yeah, like that's what a lot of people had an issue with, and I take issue with that as well because you didn't present a finished project.
It's kind of like Hunt the Truth, where they're like, "Hey, you're gonna get a really cool thing." Just
yeah, right.
We had an idea that we didn't do.
Yeah, but I think you would enjoy what they do. They focus, like I said, mostly on Dracula's court, and there's a lot of intrigue there for your twisty.
Yeah, he
stuff.
loses a fang, and then they find a series called Hunt the Tooth.
Stop it.
But Keenan.
But no,
that was very good. But Keenan, how did we do this week? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I think you all enjoyed that. But anyway, I think you guys did really good. I'm really proud of you.
Thanks, Daddy. Keenan.
I'm really, happy with this episode overall because I originally had a different topic planned, but then the original people I had didn't really work with what I wanted to do. So
you can't work with these actors.
Well, I wanted to talk about like dubs versus subs. And like,
Oh yeah, I would be horrible for
that.
Yeah,
exactly. But anyway,
how do you feel about dubbed podcasts versus subbed podcasts?
I think dubbed podcasts are trash. I only read the subs of podcasts.
I challenge
makes
you
your
to
drive
dub
to
my
work
hand.
a little more dangerous.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm sidetracking. How did we do?
I'm trying to get to that.
I'm sorry. Forgive me, Daddy.
I think the Golden Whip.
God, I don't like that juxtaposition.
You want me to come up with something else? Is that what you want?
No, it's that I said Daddy right before
Golden
you said whip,
Crucifix,
and I don't
or
like
something like.
The subtext is strong with this one.
God, just go get enslaved or something. I don't know. There's ads on, Craigslist. I'm sure you can answer. Anyway, I think I'm gonna give it to Colin.
Ooh.
That is 2 for 2 anime gold stars for this anime hater boy.
Not so much for your analysis. Mostly because one, I liked your perspective on the adaptation coming from a good adaptation and to maybe not an as well received source material, and also because of your analysis of Castlevania, and I think that honestly leads credence to Castlevania, because even you, who probably, let's be honest, only half pay attention to most of it, just because
I was trying not to watch, honestly, because watching anime is uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
I know I'm really whining, but whatever.
But still, they had enough for you to dissect. I think that's good. And Jahnavi, you got really close. Because I also this was a very hard one for me, honestly. Because I also really enjoyed Jahnavi's points. Also about just the aesthetics and about the artist's vision, as well as how maybe adaptations should be kind of shifted in focus.
I also did pick a 2-minute subject, so.
No, but you still had so much to say about it.
Let's discuss the moral representation of the plight of humanity as represented in 2010's Pixels versus the good and evil chiaroscuro presentation of Castlevania 2017.
I will be a whiny pedant. It'll be great.
Yeah, and basically, there you have it. That's why I chose you guys. It was tough, though. It was tough. All right, everyone. So, that's the end of our episode. Thank you for listening to the Common Geeking program. I am your host, Keenan Kodesch, and you can find me in my domain, my castle. An emissary will be sent to you. You simply need to think of it. Don't be scared just because they have 4 eyes and are nothing but a ball of tentacles. Just tell them your info, and he will report back to me. Again, I am joined by my friends.
Hi, my name is Colin Ketchen. You can find me online at SonicColinK in a variety of capacities, and I'm wondering, where are the eyeballs if it is a ball of tentacles?
Listen, you guys.
At the end of the tentacles. Come on.
It's an eldritch horror. I can't explain it.
It's like a beholder from Dungeons and Dragons.
Lovecraft even couldn't explain half of his fucking descriptions. He was he just a run-on sentence about how it was tall. I guess maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He wasn't done Lovecrafting.
and Jahnavi.
Yeah, and then hi, I interrupted, but I'm Jahnavi, and you just don't find me. I'll find you. I work for the government.
Don't find me. Don't look for me. I love it. Yeah,
this is terrifying.
Great. Next week, our episode will be hosted, I believe, by Jahnavi, right? Or
yeah, I'm doing the Common Briefing program, wherein we'll talk about geek news and shit. It'll be great.
All right, and that will come out next Friday, what is next Friday, guys? Do we all know? Do we know what next Friday is?
I don't know.
Guys,
I don't know who's editing this. Put it in editing.
Put it in editing, guys. You want me to just ramble off a bunch of, let's go, December.
Let's give you all the dates that you need.
December 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21,
Wait, no,
22,
I actually
23,
do know
24,
because
25,
we're recording this
26,
super late.
27, 28, 29, 30, or January.
I hate you so much. It's going to come out on December 21st.
6, 7,
hey,
8, 9,
enjoy your
10,
Yuletide
11,
season,
12, 13,
celebrating
14, 15, 16,
the holidays
17, 18,
with this
19,
gory
20.
kink fest of a podcast.
What did you say? December 26th?
First.
December 21st is when that will be coming out.
Editor's note. No, guys, that episode will air on the 4th of January. You are only off by 2 weeks.
That's the next
Sorry,
one.
editors.
Program, right? Yeah. And follow us on, of course, on Facebook or Twitter at Geeking Program. Any engagement such as any engagement such as sharing a post, tagging us, or tweeting hashtag CGP will enter you into a raffle where you get picked. You get to pick the topic for a future episode.
If you give me a good spook, you can be on the show.
Reviewing us on Apple Podcasts is a critical way to help our growing show, and we'll read new reviews on the air anyways. Thanks for listening, subscribing, sharing, everything, and most of all for killing vampires. And we'll talk to you next.
This episode of the Common Geeking Program was hosted by Keenan Kodesch, joined by the representatives Colin Ketchen and Jahnavi Iyer. This episode is sponsored by Editing on Christmas, decidedly after the 21st of December. The podcast is created and produced by Colin Ketchen and Jeff Leavitt, with this episode edited by me, Jeff, as well as Matt Canavan, and featuring original music by Colin Ketchen. Next week will be another Geek News episode called the Common Briefing Program, so be sure to tune in for that on January 4th. Again, that is January 4th. And as always, thank you for listening to this.
I'm recording.
Wonderful.
Now you have a lovely view of my elbow since I can't find a good place to put my...
It's better than the elbow I've got. Mine's all sweaty. I've been playing some Smash Bros. And I got real tensed up.
Oh, cool. My gosh. This is a level of game athleticism I don't understand.
Yeah, I actually registered 2 minutes of exercise on my fitness tracker by playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Damn.
Never knew I could clench so hard.
That might be the title. I never knew I could clench so hard.
An autobiography by Colin Ketchen. I wouldn't read it, but I definitely go, that's a cool title, and then keep walking. So, so that means there's people who would buy it based on the title.